Welcome back to Fantasy Turf War. I am Commissioner Corey, and this is your Week 4 update for Fantasy Turf War. 64 teams going head-to-head to see who's the ultimate champion. Looks a little different in the background. I am on the road this week, and so I'm doing this from my hotel room. But nonetheless, we have a great show lined up. Lots of great content, some records, some contests, some merch, some really good matchups. So let's just get straight to it. Before we do, nope. Before we do, just a reminder that we are starting our contest on 1 October. It is a done via viral sweep, so you'll go ahead and enter. Before we do, go ahead and hit the subscribe button here on YouTube or any of the channels that you're currently obtaining. No. Before you do, welcome back to Fantasy Turf War. I am, of course, your Commissioner Corey, and looks a little different this week. That is because I am on the road doing this from my hotel room. Been a super crazy week, both logistically and entertainment-wise for Fantasy Turf War, but lots of great content, lots of cool stuff going on. And just a reminder, on 1 October, we are starting our first contest. We were trying to hit a goal of 100 subscribers in the first 100 days, and we got pretty darn close. And so we are starting our contest 1 October. If you want to find out more information, you have to subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow along at home. However you're consuming the show, pay attention to all of that as of 1 October. Completely free to enter, and then you get bonus entries for doing certain tasks, so you'll definitely want to stay tuned. Got a good look at the merchandise this week. The helmet is pretty cool, and a little jealous that I don't get to keep it, but I'm glad someone at home is going to be able to take it and put it on their shelf and kind of display that. So it'll be a cool contest. I'm glad you all can be a part of it, but make sure you're following along so that you can have a chance to win. Before we get started, I just want to go over a couple things. So we do have our first available t-shirt out there. We'll put the link in the show description as well. It is a logo t-shirt. Thanks to Gridiron Goddess and Susan over there for putting that together for us. Way to support our show. Let us know if you're wearing it out. We want to see you wearing it. Love to see that, and hopefully you guys are following along home with merch. Also, for the internal teams, we have a couple more weeks. I think you have 4 more days. If you're looking to get in on the first exclusive limited edition Commissioner's Choice Turf War custom jersey, you can have it'll say Fantasy Turf War on the front. It'll have our helmet logo on the right chest, and then any name you want on the back and any numbers you want. You can customize the numbers to be different in case that's something you want. That is a possibility, but you only have a couple more days, so make sure you get that in. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at Week 3's matchups, and let's see how everyone did. Division 1, our guinea pigs. You have Floyd Beard taking out last place winner pretty handily. Joe Knight and the Vibe taking out DJ Hall and Jive Turkeys also pretty handily there. Stat Daddies continuing on against General OGFL Teamer. Lefties with a close win against Bam Bam. That's Andy. By 1.5. That's a pretty close point differential there. Lamb Chops, Desmond Rodonez taking on Sean Petnati at 87. So there's a good win there. Casey Woolley taking out Teardown with a solid performance there. Matt Brown taking out Jeff C. And rounding out Division 1 is Carswell Golf beating Vegas Daddy and the Screaming Pomeranians pretty handily there as well. Given these results, let's take a look at the Division 1 standings. All right, so just a reminder at home, if it's the first time you're watching, the green labels and the red labels indicate the top 2 in the division and the bottom 1 in the division, respectively. So for Fantasy Turf War, the top 2 in each division at the end of the regular season, which is Week 14, will advance to the playoffs and be seeded against the other divisions. And so top 2 right now are Stat Daddies and Carswell Golf. And last place is currently last place winner. How convenient. And there is a punishment for each division loser and an overall punishment for the overall loser of each division. Week two, or I'm sorry, Division Two, pretty spread out. So you have Who Let the Service Dogs Out beating Evan Coco, pretty close there. Strange Brew beating out Influencing Win. Jay Harper and Game Time Sports Network beating out the Red Zone. Shady Brady continuing on with 3-0 against Southside Stampede. Solid performance from Matthew Brandon, breaking the 100-point mark, but was not enough to beat Timothy Trilka Team Smooth. That is a tough loss because I think the league average is less than 100 per week, and that's a tough one. Alex and the Mystics took out Mark Manzella and Sports Idiot Nation with a solid performance of 167.1 points against Matthew over at Legit Sports Media. And then rounding out Division 2, you have Katie Louisi beating our host, Lauren. Let's take a look at Division 2 stats. No surprise there. Top seed is Shady Brady and Strange Brew. Both of those teams are 3-0. And, of course, at the bottom there we have Adam Marino, who's been just plagued by injuries this year, sitting in, unfortunately, 16th place. So we'll see if he can improve that record into Week 4. Division 3, we had a rivalry game. The cousins of Nick Nichols and Cup of Almond Raw going up against Ryan Gilmartin of Gilly's Gang. Gilly, you have won that match, so have fun at Thanksgiving. Eddie over at Commish and Talon from Gorilla Camp, another close game there. Tough loss for Talon as he broke the 100 mark. Was not enough to beat Commish Kit. Bebskins and Rad Dad, another really, really close one. Let me double check that because I'm pretty sure Rad Dad won. Boba Sensei beating the Masterpieces. Yippee Ki Justin Tucker again crossing the century mark, but was not enough to beat Cassie Tucker over at Marketing Happy Hour. Susan beats Kurt. Kurt, you broke the century mark, but you are now 0-3, sir. And Tank, much better performance this week. I think he scored more points this week 3 than he did the first 2 weeks of the whole season. So solid performance there to beat out Zach over at Flurry Sports. And then rounding out Division 3, you have Dino Sports against Jordan Short. Jordan, you are sitting at 0-3 as well, so very tough loss there. Division 3 rankings, you have, Dennis is 3-0. So there's a correction on that slide by my part. You're sitting at 3-0 at the number 1 spot overall in Division 3. You have Tank sitting at number 2, closely followed by those other teams. And then Jordan Short remains at number 16th in that division. Division 4. So you have Becky Macon over at the Figments Crew beating Fantasy Couriers, DJ Dove. You have Ryan Carr beating out Rachel Douglas. Matthew Metzbauer from Team Ohana, doing that one on the road as well. I know they were in Las Vegas at a competition, taking out Jeffrey Demers over at Downfield Reed. Cobra Kai, Casey Garcia beating out the Cupertino Deadites, Zach Fisher. Cardiacs with a solid win over Excitement. Locked On Fantasy Baseball with an absolute crusher of 146.9 to 32, beating out the Crush Crew. And then you have, of course, Jesse Grind over at Diamond Dogs and Unconventional Strength, beating out the Shiar Sugoths. That's Ben Fisher. And then rounding out Division 4, you have Bees in the Backfield against Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Sorry, Sebastian, you were quite handily defeated this week, sir. Division 4 rankings. So Diamond Dogs is the only 3-0 team in Division 4. He's sitting nice and happy up top, followed closely by Matthew Lane of Locked On Fantasy Baseball. He's our co-host. And then Sebastian Bassett is still in last place in that division. See if he can make a comeback in Week 4. All right, last week we shared that we had come up with our division names. So the teams got to pick their own, and I had come up with some basic clip art pictures to make that work. But if you were paying attention to the slides, you already got a sneak peek. But we have revamped what our divisions look like. And so let's take a look at our new mascots. And I think these are pretty final. So you've got our guinea pigs, our any given Sunday. So that's a very angry Sunday. You have our goats, and of course our monarchs. And just a reminder for what the teams are playing for. This is to the champion. They have a custom ring, which is courtesy of Trophy Smack. They have provided us so graciously with a custom ring for our inaugural champion. This is a one of a kind ring as of this point, and we'll probably do something similar next year. The team will also get a perpetual trophy and a personal trophy that they can keep with them forever. The perpetual trophy will move on to the next winner for season 2, whenever that happens. All right, so we have a lot of statistics to go over this week, but you can get an idea of where the total points were per division. So last week was a pretty low note for all divisions across the board. Looks like they're rebounding pretty nicely this week, so that's good to see. Average points again, low note last week and much better this week. Season 1, week 3's average points per division. So each division, if you average those out, you'll get this. So no division in any. Let me rephrase that. No division across the century mark as their average points scored per team. So it was an indicator of if you were able to break 100, you're more likely to win. We saw in the Division 3 matchups that did not happen for some of those teams, and those are tough losses. Because if you'd played someone else in the league, you probably would have won. But it is the luck of the draw. Average points per team, and so there's a little bit of a difference in the way you average them together, and so still no one's crossing that century mark, although we are doing better this week than last week. Average points per team as a league for weeks 1, 2, and 3. It's a little bit of a correction on that slide. Again, no one's crossing that century mark, but we are getting close. Highs and lows. So this is the minimum and maximum that the points have scored, or the divisions have scored in each week. You can see that it started to separate a little bit. Some highs, some really big highs, some really big lows. Total points for the whole league. Week 1 was still our best week yet. The whole league put up a total of 6,232.2 points. This last week was our low week, but this week we rebounded. We scored about 24 points more than we did last week as a whole. So much better week for everybody. All right, so now we've got a record book. So we've talked about this before, and that Fantasy Turf War is 64 teams. So with that comes a whole lot of data, and so we wanted to share some of our records that we've been having. So that last week we had shared most points for a single game was Mike Lanza at 152.5, but we also have updates to that because the new highest the new record for most points in a single game goes to T.I. Jonathan Mohan over at Sports Idiot Nation, putting up a whopping 167.1 in week 3. That is amazing. Our previous record holder for least points in a single game, which is, hey, records are records. So whether they're good or bad, you still get to hold them, right? So Adam Marino last week he had put up 38.4 points, which was an all-time low for the league. That record has now been broken by Chet Atkins. Crush Crew, you put up a 32.4 game against Locked On Fantasy Baseball, Matthew Wane over there. So, unfortunately, Chet, not a good week for you. You are also another team that's been plagued by injuries. So, it's nothing really in your control, but hopefully you're able to rebound as the season continues on. We have a new record book entry, so we have a smallest margin of victory. So we're trying to scale out the record book as we go each week, so we'll keep these updated. But Teamer Terry walking away with a 1.5 as the victory margin, which was scored back in week 1 with Andy Schiffer 86.6 against Teamer Terry in general OGFL for 88.1. So very close match. We did have another 1.5 point differential this past week in week 3, but since it did not break the previous record, we're going to leave this one intact. So this one's first to happen, it stays. We also have a new record of the largest margin of victory, which is Joe Knight putting up a plus 72.2 points in week 2 with the Vibe against last place winner. So that's Richard with a 40.1. And if you were paying attention, you know that this record has also been broken this week because Matthew Wane is putting up a plus 114.5 point differential against the Crush Crew. So an absolutely dominant game put on by Matthew this last week, and that is one for the record book. So he now has 2 records this week. We also have the lowest total game score, which is a record entry from last week going forward. So Jordan Short and Tank Latier shared this title together at 101.9 points back in week 2. And then we also have the highest total game score. So both teams put this one together. So Vegas Maddie and Jeff C put up 249.9 points last week, and so that is a solid producing game there. Highest total game score was also broken by T.I., Jonathan Mohan, and Matthew Rummick. So it's now 262.3 is the record, which was just set last week. So we set it with Jeff 2 weeks prior in Vegas Matty, and then it was broken this week. We also have a new entry for most points scored by a division in a single week. So this goes to Division 1. Congratulations. You all collectively hold the title for most points scored in a single week. That is 1579.8. So almost 1580 points. And that was week 1 that you guys did that. And unfortunately, with the highs come the lows. So the Monarchs, back in week 2, you have put up the least points scored by a division in a week at 1508.86. So, hey, records are records. But you guys did not have a good week on week 2, as most of the league did not. So this is probably what most people are waiting for, is our overall rankings. Our overall rankings for going into week 4, we have Jesse Grund sitting at the top, Justin Davies, Charles Carswell, Mike Lanza, Dennis Tresca, Pastor Jack, Tank Latier, and Floyd Beard as our top 8. T.I., Jonathan Mohan, Matthew Wane, Gilly Gilmartin, Talon Van Horn, Joe Knight, Matthew Rummick, Cameron Bassett, and Benjamin Fisher are rounding out the top 16. One thing to note here is that you notice that in rank 10 is Matthew Wane, who is the green indicator. That is because Floyd Beard is not the top 2 in his division, although all top 8 teams are 3-0. Because he is not the top 2 in his division, he at this point would not make the playoffs if it ended today, which of course we have 10 more weeks to go. That would actually be given to Matthew Wane because Jesse Grund is the only 3-0 team in that division. Matthew Wane is 2-1 and has the tiebreaker for points scored. Uh, 17-32. Casey Woolley, Desmond, Michael Crystal, Kevin Beverly, Matt Josephs, Ryan Carr, Dan Brown Jr., Eric Arena, Renee Neal, Fantasy Couriers, Eric Lund, Zach Fisher, Casey Garcia, Teamer Terry, Matthew Metzbauer, and Alex Kaplan. 33-48, you've got Michelle Halleck, Cardiacs, Katie and Jet, Timothy Drilk, Vegas Maddie, Matt Brandon, Jeffrey Demers, Cassie Tucker, Lauren Hill is sitting at 41. Our host there, you got to step it up a little bit. Mark Manzella, Zach Brunner, Eddie Frias in the commish kit, Nick Nichols, Becky Mankin climbing all the way to 46 this week, Jeff C following closely behind at 47, and Susan over at Gridiron Goddess. Again, t-shirt is in the link below. She is rounding out the top 48. And let's take a look at our bottom 16. Matthew Brown, Evan Kokusinski, we'll figure it out. Apologize in advance. Scott Habib, Jay Harper, Chet getting crushed this last week, pun intended. Sean Petnati, Lauren Kaler over at the Red Zone, DJ Hall, Julius Adam, Kurt Swilly, tough losses, and Rachel Douglas, Sebastian Bassett, Andy Schiffer, Adam Marino, Richard Falls, and then bottom is Jordan Short. Jordan is learning the game, and so she is making adjustments, and hopefully she can pull out a couple wins throughout the season to get herself out of the bottom four. And again, you'll notice that the ranked 60 is Sebastian Bassett. He is not the bottom four of the league currently, but he is in the bottom four for divisions. And so if the season ended today, Andy would be off the hook. So, Andy, you might want to go play the lottery just in case, because you would not be getting the punishment. You have the lefties and Floyd Beard. Floyd is a 3-0 team, so we'll see if he's able to hold on against Eric Arena and the lefties. A last place winner, Richard, going up against Teamer, General OGFL. Very interesting game. Hopefully, Richard can pull out a win here and get off the bench. Jive Turkeys sitting at 0-3 against Andy Schiffer over at Big Andy Media. Bam Bam. This is a great game because someone will walk away as their first win of the season, and the other one will fall to 0-4 on the season and be in the bottom of the rankings for the next week. So we just talked about how Andy was not in the bottom four, and just kind of by circumstance, and looks like that could be uprooted. You have Justin going in the Stat Daddies going up against Joe Knight and the Vibe. That should be a good match to watch. Joe is a very solid team, and so is Justin. And let's see if Justin's able to hold on to his 3-0. Charles going up against Lamb Chops 3-0, 2-1. That should be a good game to watch. Sean Petnati over at the coach's desk going up against Jeff C. Michael Crystal at 2-1 over at Teardown going up against Vegas Maddie at 1-2. Matt Brown and Casey. This is a rivalry game. Big one to watch here. You've got Matt Brown and Casey Woolley. Both teams are in the middle of the pack. Casey has a lot more to lose at rank 17, but this should be a fun one to watch. These two do a podcast together, so this should be a really fun one to pay attention to. Division 3, we have Any Given Sunday. That is a total dad joke, just because I couldn't figure out the best mascot, and that is a very angry Sunday we came up with. So let's take a look at their matchups. Mike Lanza against Cameron Bassett and Who Let the Service Dogs Out. This is one to watch. You have a rank 15 go against number 4, 2-1, and a 3-0 team. That is a solid game to watch. Evan or Team Coco, Evan going up against Jay Harper at Game Time Sports Network. Both teams are 1-2. Pastor Jack against Southside Stampede and Dan Brown Jr. That is a game to watch as well. Let's see if Pastor is able to hold on to his 3-0. The Red Zone against Influencing Win. This is another one where winner will walk away with their first win. Loser will walk away at the bottom of their division. That's a good one to watch. Lauren Hill, our host, going up against Matthew Brandon at Full Time Fantasy. Both teams are 1-2. Pretty close in rankings. Timothy Trilk going against Sports Idiot Nation. Alex and the Mystics going up against Katie Louisi. Matt over at Legit Sports Media going against Mark Manzella. And we have Division 3 with the Goats. Very fierce looking goat. Dennis Tresca and the Rad Dad going up against Gilly Gilmartin. That's one to watch. Rank 5 against rank 11. Nick Nichols going up against Gridiron Goddess. Talon over at Gorilla Camp against Bevskins. Kurt, Peachtree Growler, Big Nick's Energy going up against Eddie and Kamishkit. Jordan at Stats on Stats and Scott Habib at the Masterpiece. Let's see if Jordan's able to pull out a win here. Nichelle over at Boba Sensei and Zach at Flurry Sports. Cassie over at Marketing Happy Hour and Dinosport. Cassie over at Marketing Happy Hour against Dino Sports. Tank 3-0 against Matt Josephs and Yippee Ki Justin Tucker. And we have our Division 4, the Monarchs. Casey Garcia and Becky Mankin over at Figman's Crew. DJ Dove and JJ Wing at the Fantasy Couriers going up against Jeffrey Demirs. Rachel Douglas and Cupertino Deadites Dragon's Horde. Mets going up against Ryan Carr. Jesse has a lot of pressure on him this week. Let's see if he can beat out the 0-3 excitement. Team Cardiacs against the Crush Crew. Our co-host Matthew Ane at the Locked On Fantasy Baseball going up against Renee Neal. Bees in the backfield. And Sebastian Bassett going up against Ben Fisher at the Shiar Shugoths. And let's see if Sebastian can get off the 0-3 hump there. That's going to do it for this week. I hope you enjoyed Week 4's Fantasy Turf War preview. Lots of interesting matchups. Let me know in the comments who do you think is going to win some of these, and we'll see if you're right. We'll start doing a pick'em here soon, maybe if that takes off. But I love watching these teams go at it. Last week you had two cousins. This week you have two business partners going up against each other. So it's a great time all around. Don't forget our contest starting on October. If you have not subscribed, now is the time to do it. That's the only way you're going to find out when we start. You want to make sure you get those early entries because the more people are going to find out throughout the month, the more their entries that they're going to get, and this is your chance to get those extra entries before they all figure it out. So if you want to win a cool autograph helmet from a player who may or may not ever be playing again, we'll see. He just went to Germany, so if, everyone knows the news there. So timely for sure, and entertaining to say the least. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you all next week. Bye-bye.